scrolling through dating apps, and doom, a surprising number, are also asking the big questions. What's my purpose? What's my chart? What time was I born?
Today on The Breakfast Club, we discuss a seemingly quiet shift that's happening. A growing number of young Indians are downloading astrology apps, using ChatGPT to calculate and decode their Janam Patris and Kundlis, signing up for 10-day Vipassana retreats, and even live streaming their spiritual practices. From Instagram gurus to Saturn returnees, it's a scene that looks very different from what spirituality looked like in the generations past.
But here's the real question we asked this morning. What does spirituality even mean in 2025? Is it faith? Is it energy? Can astrology and tarot be spoken of in the same breath as meditation and devotion? Or is this just Gen Z's way of feeling a little more in control of today's increasingly chaotic world?
Today on the show, we explore how young people in India and around the world are reimagining spirituality today, why they're turning inwards in the age of distraction, and what it means when a generation that's raised on algorithms starts looking for answers that lie beyond them. So to understand this story in much more depth, we have multiple people joining us on the show today. First, to understand the essence of spiritual, joining us on the show is Mohanji. Mohanji is a global humanitarian. He's committed to raising the awareness of generations from selfishness to selflessness, and his mission is to wake up kindness in the hearts of people. So thank you for joining us so much this morning on the show.
Thank you so much for
sharing
Namaste.
some of your own inner spiritual energy with us this morning. Sir, can we ask you, tell us first, this phenomenon that we're tracing, that it feels like more and more young people are saying that we want and we need spiritual guidance. Have you seen this in practice to be true?
So many interesting things are happening in the world now. On one side, the religion, as you can say, religious things, people are getting fed up. On the other side, there are insecurity-oriented, ritualistic things going on. See, that's all connected to one-upmanship. That means they want to excel in the world, and they are trying to find various ways how they can excel, the competitive level of life. Because if you do not prove that you are slightly better than the other, there is a fear of losing the position. So that's very high. But youth especially are very intelligent. They know much more than an average. Like, for example, when I was growing up, there was no AI, there was no web. So the details or the things which we collected were from books. Today, that's not the case. There is ChatGPT. There are so many things to give information. But unless the information is processed, it doesn't become knowledge. And unless it's experienced, it doesn't become wisdom. So today's youth, see, for me, I'm talking to you from Cancun, Mexico. See, most of the people who follow me, or large share of them, are all youth. And they have specific questions. And if they don't get answers, they are not interested. And very clear, and I like it. I always say question, don't swallow whatever people say. So the youth today are asking the relevant questions, and they need experiences. Experiences transforms. Knowledge or information never transforms. So people are more looking at the self-connection. This has become very important, which leads to stability. And stability leads to great expressions, effectiveness. So in that track, youth are becoming more and more connected. But in Indian side, what I have seen is more than a lot of ritual things are happening, because that's pretty much a tradition that we go into rituals and people expect results based on rituals, etc. But that you can't change, because there's a culture there like that. But overseas, it's slightly different.
Okay. Mohanji, since you have the Mohanji Foundation centers in as many as 15 countries, you have access to youth from across the world. Tell us, how do you connect with this generation that's always exploring, they're always discovering, they're always trying to find meaning in life amid all the chaos? And how do they connect back with you or respond to you and your vision?
I think they connect to me. They need things very simplified. See, for example, I talk about self-connection. Connection to yourself as the most authentic connection. With anything outside, it is temporary. But connection with you is the best ever connection and the most authentic connection, which people catch very fast. And I take them through one way of connecting to oneself, through self-acceptance. Simple. You have to accept yourself with all your faults and all your strengths, so that you don't have any conflict with you. Then you are very powerful, which gives you stability. As I said earlier, stability gives you effectiveness. And that's probably why the youth, see, they don't want complicated stuff. And they don't want it tomorrow. So they ask specific questions. If they don't get specific answers, then they are not interested. And also, please remember, today, the best companion is your mobile phone. We are all addicted to mobile phone. And there is a world of entertainment waiting there to catch us. So everybody have some kind of opinion about everything. Maybe their opinions, maybe that's not even close to truth. But everybody, whether it's youth or adult, everybody have an opinion. And I don't normally allow anybody to follow anything, or I will recommend not to follow anything blindly. Because that will not help you in any way. Because it's like believing in somebody. I said you should know, not believe. Because the system of Bharat has always been knowing through experience, not believing something from somewhere. And one other thing which I have seen of late. See, I have a pretty large following in Iran and in Arab countries as well, local people. See, what I have seen, a lot of people are moving towards atheism because of confusion. Because when religions try to bind people, they try to break free. So I was discussing with one professor in London, and he said 47% of the world is now atheists. So we must understand that they don't want any religion, they don't want any hangover, they don't want any kind of rituals. So we need to understand the change in mindset of the youth. On one side, there are fear factor connected to religion, or if you don't do something, something will happen to you. People want to break free. And on the other side, there is this insecurity, which is created by competition, or like we have been trained to compete, all those things. And at one point in time, when you are not afraid of competition, because you trust yourself, the whole equation changes.
I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning, for shedding a light just for us.
It's night here. Thank you.
But then good evening to you, but thank you so much for joining us, sir. And
thank you for having
just shining a light on the questions people
Thank you
are
so
bringing
much. Yeah.
Okay, let's take you, our audience, now from that over to another spiritual teacher. This is Shri Anish. She's a spiritual teacher, and he's someone who's had a particularly important and interesting journey that is relevant to today's story. He's an ex-corporate CEO. He's a successful entrepreneur. He founded or co-founded People Strong in 2006, and then he moved to the Himalayas for his own deeper spiritual quest, and he continues to take his messages to the people. So let's go over to him to understand more about it. All right, we'll just wait for Shri
Good morning,
Shri
Anish ji. Good morning. Thank you so much for sparing the time. Hope you're doing well. It's a very interesting conversation we've decided to take forward this morning, and who better than you to tell us what the youth of the country is making of religion, of spirituality, of meditation. Is that trend changing? Do you think the millennials or the previous generations, for instance, had shunned this concept or shunned faith because they wanted to be more ambitious, they wanted to be more career oriented, and suddenly you have the Gen Z who are saying we're out of that rat race?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting times we are witnessing. You see, few things are happening. The generation before Gen Z, let's say our generation, whole thing of spirituality or wisdom was not democratized. You know, when you went to school, or our generation went to school, we were not encouraged to ask questions. We were encouraged to just keep your mouth shut and listen, right? But now what is happening because of the technology and abundance that the Gen Z is experiencing, there's a democratization of knowledge, wisdom, and they have access. So that's one thing. The other interesting thing which has happened with this current generation is that they've been asking questions. They've been asking questions to the AI models, I see these youngsters, even if they are getting bored, they'll ask the AI model, look, I have 15 minutes, I'm getting bored, what do I do, right? Or what is this and what is that? So, Bharat has always been an Upanishadic parampara, An Upanishadic parampara is where we are encouraged to ask questions so that we are able to seek answers. So, previous generation didn't get that because of all the pressures, etc. But this generation has got tuned. They are in habit of asking questions. And thankfully now they are directing their questions towards the deeper quest. And I think that is happening because too much of chaos. Since, the advent of humanity, we want to make sense of the world around us. So these Gen Zs also want to make sense of the world around them. And how do you do that? You ask questions. And nobody's now stopping you from asking questions, and answers are everywhere. Even I was testing this interesting tool called Perplexity. You ask some question that what is the purpose of my life and what is the meaningfulness of my life, and it gives you some fantastic answers, right? So wisdom is becoming, or knowledge is becoming, democratized. And these guys are wanting to make sense of the world around them. The third angle here is, when the pressures and chaos is too much, at those moments, we want to really find our own ground, right? And how do you find ground unless you really know what's the true purpose, meaning of all of this, right? And the fourth element, which is very important element I find here is, you see, this generation is born in the space of abundance, right? They have everything that, one would wish or need in life, from the toys to video games to all the, good food and, comfortable life, more or less. India is no more a poor country, you see. Now, when you have everything, naturally the question comes, what next? Is there some deeper purpose or meaning behind this, right? And this is the generation which is also feeling a little lonely. See, they don't have many friends. When you're lonely, you introspect. When you're lonely, you reflect, right? And introspection and reflection are the great ways and means to push you or point you towards something which is inner. All through the ages, spirituality has always been based on introspection and reflection. These guys have time to do that, yeah, and they're lonely.
Could we ask you, to your point, that there is now more time that youngsters have? I want to understand, are your younger followers, those who listen to you and consider you a teacher, are they coming to you with different questions from those that you saw 10 years ago? Are there changes you've discovered, and what are those questions?
Right. So there's some shift in the questions or the seeking that they have, of course. Few trends that are emerging. One, their questions are a lot around the stability of the mind. 10 years ago, this was not the case. And I suspect it is happening because of too many distractions all around us, too much of content all around us. So that's a major shift I see in last 10 years, right? So how do I make my mind center or make sense of so much of information? Yeah. So distraction is one big element here. Overload of content, questions related to that. How do I know what to trust and what not to trust? Because there's an overload. Yeah, so there's this kind of shift in the questions. The other thing I'm also seeing in which has been always there. Lot of youngsters are also moving towards a spiritual path because of FOMO. Their friends are talking about it, so they also want to talk about it. Yeah, so it's kind of a trending thing also.
So it's become cool suddenly.
It's become cool, and you see the social media reel, if somebody is going at the ghats of Kashi and showing that her Mahadev thing. So you're inspired as the fellow generation to also follow the trend. We don't want to be left behind. So that's also adding to that. And let's also remember, there's also a sense of escapism and emotional instability, which are the downside of it. Yeah. We don't want to work at the deeper solutions. We want quick fixes. So any tool of meditation can be a quick fix. Any tarot reading session could be a quick fix. I'm not denying the essence of those tools, but lot of people are also just getting into this for a quick fix, the quick gratification, the quick solution.
Right.
They're not looking deeper into solving the bigger puzzle here. Yeah,
And
so that's what
there
it
really
comes.
is no quick fix to finding a way to spirituality. And
No,
through your teachings,
yeah.
through some of the words that we've heard from you, that one thing stands very clear. Shri Anish, thank you so much for taking out the time, and thank you for sharing what's really on the mind of the Gen Z when it comes to faith and spirituality.
Okay, let's now take you to a young voice, because we've been speaking so much about Gen Z, and we need to hear finally from Gen Z, from younger millennials, to understand how these changes are happening in their lives. Next, Indian shooter Divya Thadigol joins us here, and she is someone who's won medals for shooting at multiple international games, and she joins us. We're so proud of her. You can see her wearing that uniform. We're so proud of her. Good morning, Divya. It's lovely to have you here on the show. Divya, take us into your mind for a second. Shooting is something that requires extreme stillness in your mind, in your body also. Can you just tell us what's happening internally when you're lining up a shot first, just so we can know what that moment feels like? Then we'll ask you more about this topic.
So when it comes to shooting, shooting itself feels like the highest form of meditation for me. It's very spiritual for me. Like shooting, a sport like shooting puts a kid in much focused position. Like when you're in a physical combat sport, it constantly you're draining out so much physically. But in shooting, it's something to do with mental breathing, and Lord is involved within you, and there's no enemy there. It's you and target, and what you do with the breathe and the way you aim and the thoughts that you go through. Like I was not a shooting athlete since my at young age. I was a basketball player, so I had an injury, ACL tear, and I eventually had to come out of basketball and do uh, something away from physical sport. Because ACL took a lot of time to recover, and a lot of things happened. Meanwhile, I found individual sport to be very interesting, and especially golf, shooting, these kind of sport. We have more opportunities that we are with ourselves. We are doing something for a longer time, and shooting just happened in that way, so that I can bring an Olympic medal for the country one day. Because basketball, it's a team sport, and in India, we nowhere stood within 100 in the ranking. But in shooting, people were performing really well. And it's a very lesser known thing to the world, especially shooting. And we have been performing so well, like consistently. And I saw a lot of medalists like Rajavardhan Singh Rathore, Abhinav Bindra, Vijay Kumar, Gagan Naran sir. They all have won medals, and they brought the sport in a different limelight. And that's what inspired me, especially when Vijay Kumar won London Olympic medal 2002. I was watching that match on TV, and it was something interesting.
Yes, Divya, you're absolutely right. All shooters point out to one thing, that the entire practice session is so meditative in itself. When is it that you then realize that you need to fall back on certain practices of stillness? You spoke about Sudarshan Kriya of Sahaj Samadhi meditation helping you. How did that come to you? Was there any person who drove you to these specific practices? Tell us all about your journey.
Yes, it was my grandma. My nani has been a very spiritual person. She is that 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Suprabhatam kind of person. Like she would play Vishnu Sahasranamam at home in the morning. She reads a lot of spiritual books and everything. And she's also into a lot of practice of Kriya and doing all these pranayama early morning. Okay, and she would be doing something, and she never told me about it because I was a kid. And she would not practice in the room that I was there. She would go to a different room and practice the Kriya, because that's the rule of Kriya. And I was like very interested, what is she doing? Only thing is like she would do Bastrika, and after that she would just still quiet, and she would be awake at 3 or 4 a.m. and she would just sit and meditate. And as a kid, you are always you seek a lot of things, right? You see elders doing it, and you are like quite curious about what is happening, and you want to know what they are doing. And I happened to ask her, and she told it is so and so. And I had very early encounter with Shri Guruji at 2002, around 2002-1. That was my first meeting with Guruji. Like I first time happened to see him in the very same place. And I was quite moved, like the way people were there and they were practicing meditation, and especially the Vishalakshi, this thing. Though that place, like I got connected to that place. And as I grew up, like I was always doing meditation, but the right channel came in when the intuition, happiness force, and happiness force is a kriya. And intuition was a different thing for especially kids under 18. And when I did my Kriya, Sahaj, all these things were entirely different. Like there are many courses in the ashram, but when you see for every age, when you look at the category of age, they have courses from, like they have this intuition course for under 18, which really helps a child to grow in their ability. Like for
Okay.
example, these days, kids have access to a lot of things, right? And many people have, like, what, how do you say? They have blocked their energy, like completely, like too many things, and less clarity. When you're like doing too many things, you're mastering none. But what, like, there's something like about your inner ability. You fail to see that, right?
Can you just tell us, Divya, because we're using the phrase meditation, we're using the word spirituality, and some would say those are not interchangeable. So I want to ask you, what does spirituality mean to you?
For me, it's a way of life. See, for me, shooting is spiritual. I'm in a sport. Luckily, I feel the stars align and I'm there. And the kind of breathing technique that I have learned in ashram has really helped me in, not just in my sport and also in my personal life, especially dealing with this injury, recovery. A lot of I went through a lot of trauma having this ACL injury, like coming back in sport. Like I went through surgery last year and in 24 July, and I was back in sport in September. So I was back in national games and I had bronze medal and I was back in the competitive zone so soon. So it takes a lot, it's a kind of psychology that plays in a lot. And for me, doing the courses, especially intuition course, really helped me from the ashram. And Kriya and Sahaj is like the best form of Kriya is the best form of breathing practice that I have learned, and Sahaj is like, again, it's a very nice meditation program.
Divya, you've spoken about how these practices helped you bounce back to life, find your way to shooting, but can you take us to an exact moment where these practices helped you?
I would say it was my national games 2022 in Gujarat that was happening. So it was at the most confused point of time. So if I have to put it like the past, I was preparing, I had completed my law graduation, I was preparing for UPSC meantime, and I was also shooting. And it was like, let me see how it goes kind of thing. And I took it very lightly. But when I saw that I was able to perform at my best potential, through the kind of breathing technique that I had learned, like from the Sudarshan Kriya, that moment I realized, okay, I can do this. And the second thing happened when I became national champion. After I became national champion, I was in the World Cups and I was shooting this Baku World Cup finals, against Olympians from Serbia.
Right.
That day, absolutely, my energy was drained out because it was in Baku and I had very bad migraine for some reason. And then that day, right before the competition, it was like I just sat with myself 20 minutes. I just practiced Kriya with myself. Like, I want to put another word. One of the foreign coaches who's from Mongolia, like she happened to interact with the art of living people in Germany. And she's a Buddhist, and she believes in Vipassana and a lot of other programs. But she happened to do Kriya, and she told me, just go do Kriya and come back. I went to a silent, just finished my Kriya, came back, and I shot that match. and we won gold in that World Cup. And that's when I realized, there's something very powerful about this breathing that I've been doing, and it was like my survival. It was everything for me at that moment. And I was so thankful. And I have a lovely picture, and it was all like, the sign. The nature was helping me, and people around me were also talking about it, because I was in that, like, I'm in that sport where it requires a lot of focus. It requires a lot of within you, the lot of thoughts that are going on.
All right. Divya, you also want to talk about whether or not there's a shift globally that's taking place as several young athletes such as you are becoming more spiritual. Are you seeing that around you? Are you seeing that in people who've taken up other sports, for instance, and are friends with you?
Yeah, definitely. Because, a lot of sports science team right now, I see even foreign athletes practicing yoga. In one of the World Cups, we happened to share the same hotel with, I don't remember, maybe Norway or some country. They were practicing yoga and dhyana mudra, meditation. And for some reason, we all were doing the gym and they were doing yoga in the gym. And I asked them, what all they practice, and they told the same. They had one or the other meditation in a different name, but it was absolutely everything together. And I see Chinese shooters. She quoted, "For me, shooting is very spiritual." So everybody is in the same path. Everybody is doing something to keep themselves in that zone, in the competition. And if you happen to interact with shooters, you will feel they are at the most centered, with the most clarity, especially athletes who are playing at elite level or having a long career. You will see them speak, and absolutely you will feel their aura. The energy is amazing.
In fact, if you're part of the national team, Toya, it's mandated that you do yoga, and you have a yoga instructor for the team. So that's how it goes. It's that important in a sport such as shooting. But Divya, thank you so much for sharing that very interesting story with us. Thank you for talking to us.
Okay, we're heading into a break. On the other side, we take you to speak to a former NASA astronaut. He's joining us right here on the show to tell us a little bit more about what Shubham Shukla can expect will take place next. Group Captain Shukla's historic ISS mission is now ended, and we have a NASA astronaut tell us why it was so important and the next steps.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Captain Sam Thomas, you took exception to certain points of the AIB report. You wanted it signed. You were also asking where is the full details about the pilots and why is it that there was a certain intent to try and blame it on a human error. Your thoughts when these advisories start flowing?
Good evening, Anand. First of all, I used to think my job is tough, but I was just watching your program about 5 minutes back. I have renewed respect for you. Great job.
No, thank you. And thank you for your patience. Apologies for the delay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Not a problem. There were 5 points on which we said that we are not happy with the AAIB report. And before that, we had said that no to speculation. We'll tell you one by one as to how these came to the point where we are now at the moment. So point number 1 is it was released in the middle of the night at about 1 o'clock, the report. Second, the US media had this report prior to anyone in India having it. 3, the CVR, one-line CVR data released is simply insinuating the pilots. 4 is the non-qualified personnel in AAIB, and 5, the worst of all, giving a clean chit to the OEM even before you end the preliminary report. These are the 5 reasons which are clear that there is a tendency, not for the first time, not for the second time, for the 100th time. And this, like we said, is not our first rodeo. We've been here for a long, long time. It is the narrative.
Welcome back. Let's talk now about some very, very exciting news for people who've been waiting for this for years now. Tesla officially launched its maiden voyage in India with the Model Y, marking a huge milestone in the country's electric vehicle revolution, but also for those of us who've been waiting for the car to debut here. The first Indian showroom was inaugurated at the Bandra Kurla complex in Mumbai. The electric SUV is available in 2 variants. You have the RWD, it's the rear wheel drive, starts at 59.89 lakh rupees. You also have the long range RWD, that's the 67.89 lakh ex-showroom model.
So customers can now book test drives, they can customize their cars and place orders as well. Deliveries are expected to begin in the 3rd quarter of 2025 with prices ranging from 61 to 69 lakh rupees depending on the city, of course. It has shipped 6 Model Y units from its Shanghai plant already to Mumbai for display and demonstration purposes. And Yesha Kotak, my colleague, has been tracking this story for us in Mumbai. She's getting us more details. Take a look.
Tesla has come up with its first showroom in India right here at BKC. There are 2 models, 2 variants of Tesla which will be available in India from here on. The first one that we speak of is Model Y. This one that we speak of is Model Y. You see the interior features of this very car. It is, in fact, there will be 2 range of Model Y that will be available in India of Tesla. One will be Model Y, Model 3. But as of now, Model Y is being brought into India. It will be available for sale from today onwards, as July 15th onwards, in Mumbai, Gurugram and Delhi. That you speak of these very features. So for the screen is computer based, similar to the Optimus board of Tesla that's on sale. Apart from that, you see clean features. 2 models of Tesla, that's Model Y, which will be available. There will be long range and which will have 500 kilometers of range, and an ultra long range which would have more than 600 kilometers of range. So far that you speak, when it comes to this very red car model that is there, it has a white and a black interior. Apart from that, you speak of the boot space. There's been given extra boot space. This very car, which is now on sale from today onwards, will be delivered by August end, whereas the second model would be up on sale from the end of year. Clearly, when it comes to these 2 models, that is the Model Y is an SUV, but however, this is the initial model will be imported from Shanghai. There are pre-launch touches that have been given. However, when you speak of the sleek interior, the Model Y is in dark grey and black alloy with a sleek cube-like silhouette that will be there. The long range RWD as well as the long range AW. These are 2 Model Y that will be available. That you speak of this very boot space. It also has the back seats which are adjustable. That you can speak of. There are buttons that are put at the end around the boot with extra boot space that this provides. When it comes to the charging, there is a USB-C port, wireless charging, voice commands and internet connectivity that has been already provided in the car.
All right, let's now talk about India's Gagan Yatri group captain Shubhanshu Shukla, who's returned to Earth. The SpaceX crew capsule named Grace has successfully splashed down off the coast of California near San Diego. This happened yesterday. It brought back group captain Shubhanshu Shukla, all of the fellow crew members, back to Earth. After this historic mission to the International Space Station, Shubhanshu Shukla has made the entire country proud by becoming the first Indian to visit the orbiting space laboratory.
Right, the crew capsule splashed down at 3 p.m. IST. Group Captain Shukla was helped out of the spacecraft. Just look at those visuals. Everyone was all smiles. All of this took place 50 minutes later. Shukla is scheduled to return to Delhi on August 17th, so in a little more than a month from now. That was all announced by Union Minister Jitendra Singh. Group Captain Shukla is only the second Indian ever, you're going to keep hearing that fact, to visit space after Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma all the way back in 1984. He's the first Indian to set foot on the $150 billion International Space Station.
And this achievement marks a significant milestone in India's space program overall. The entire country has been congratulating Group Captain Shukla on this incredible feat. And as we as a country continue to push boundaries in space exploration, we look forward to many such achievements in the future.
Now, joining us to break all of this down, we're very excited to have on Mr. Mike Massimo. He's a former NASA astronaut himself. He's a senior advisor. Hello, sir. He's a senior advisor of the space program at the Interpret Sea, Air and Space Museum. Let's just go over to him. Mike, it's lovely to have you on. Tell us first, the Axiom 4 crew, they're back on Earth. If we could just ask you, zooming out a little bit, about the big picture. How does the commercialization of space, so what Axiom is hoping to do is do exactly that, their space goals, how does it impact the future of space exploration and research, according to you?
Well, I think the Axiom missions, particularly the last couple, have been really successful missions and great missions, because it wasn't just individuals going to space. The last two missions, it was countries sending astronauts to space. In the case of India, it's been a long time since they had an astronaut sent to space, and it's also for the other countries as well, Poland and Hungary and other countries that have participated. So and these are professional astronauts that are going. These aren't just tourists. So I think that these types of missions where you see legitimate astronauts, people who are either professional astronauts representing their country or representing a company, commercial astronauts. I think these are great missions. They get science done. They do some great research, but they also do great things for their countries, representing their various countries in space. So I'm really pleased the way this last mission went. I'm very happy for India for getting another person into space, and it's been quite a while, and I hope that these types of missions continue. I think they're great.
Oh yes, in India it's all been about Shubhanshu Shukla, and I think will continue to be like that for a while. But Mike, you've been part of 2 space shuttle missions. Tell us, what are the biggest differences between a commercial space mission like Axiom 4 and a traditional NASA mission?
I think in this case, I think it's very similar to NASA missions that we used to fly due to the length, science missions that we would fly for just a couple of weeks, because these missions were just more or less 2 weeks in length, the Axiom missions. The typical NASA mission now on space station lasts usually about 6 months, the expedition, so they're much longer. But other than that, they're similar in that the objectives are to do research that is beneficial. In this case, since they were representing their countries and not going for necessarily a commercial company, that the research is very similar to the research that NASA does, trying to do things that would help in industry applications, but also basic research that'll help life on planet Earth and increase our understanding of the cosmos and our history in how our planet and how people have developed and how we can continue to explore space. So a lot of basic science research that can help us not only to continue to explore, but to help life here on planet Earth. So I think in the objectives, I think they're this last mission in particular, I think was very similar to what NASA missions have as their objectives. The length was different though. Instead of going for 6 months, these missions were about 2 weeks in time.
Over 60 experiments have been conducted by Axiom 4's crew in the last 18 days. According to you, what are the big breakthroughs that can be expected from these experiments, just in terms of, both Earth-based medicine, future space exploration?
Well, I think for the Earth-based applications, I don't know a whole lot about the experiments. I read about them, but some of them in particular, I think, were to help life on Earth in areas of agriculture and air and water, and making just general life on Earth healthier, and giving us better food supply and better environment. I think that those are some things both on Axiom 4, but on other experiments that we have as well on the space station that will help life here on Earth. I think for future space exploration, some of the biomedical experiments to understand how the human body reacts to space and how we can protect the human body from things like radiation, some of the hazards of space, I think will be very helpful. But so I think that it's a nice combination, as you pointed out, of doing things that will be helpful for us here on Earth, hopefully in the near term, but also for the future in exploration, where how we can protect people and understand how the human body performs and can maintain healthy in space. And I think learning how to do those things, keeping humans healthy in space, also has implications and spin-offs of how we can help with our healthcare here on Earth as well.
Mike, one question that's on everyone's mind is what can we take from a mission like Axiom 4 and take to a Gaganyaan mission, for instance? So please answer that for us. How will this experience, the knowledge gained from Axiom 4 contribute to India's future human spaceflight program? And I'm in particular talking about Gaganyaan.
Well, I think that this was a great way, a great next step. And India has, I think, a lot of potential in what they can do in space. They've accomplished a lot. I mean, certainly some of the amazing things they've gotten to do, launching their own rockets and landing on the moon about a year or so ago, and that was the rover on the moon. Just amazing accomplishments. And the next step, getting people to space with the program that they're planning, I think that's a wonderful program. I think that it's important to get people there, to have that experience, to have an astronaut from India that experienced 2 weeks in zero gravity, and it's not just the 2 weeks; it's also the training that is involved. And he was able to be trained with his colleagues. With my very good friend, one of my very good friends, Peggy Whitson, was the commander of that mission, the Axiom 4 mission. She and I were astronaut classmates, and she's a terrific astronaut. I'm sure he learned a lot about space. She's a very experienced. She has more time in space than any other American, Peggy does, in history. So she has over, probably now about 680, getting close to 700 days in space, my friend does. So I'm sure she shared all of her experiences going through the training to fly on the space station, to fly on the SpaceX vehicle. So it's not just those 2 weeks in space, it's also the whole training process and transferring that knowledge and understanding what it takes to get people ready to fly in space, to train them so they can be productive. And what you learn from the space flight itself, of course, is also very important. So I think now that experience, India has that experience, that's going to make a big difference in what they're going to be able to do in the future in planning their space station and flying people in space. And I think also this was an international mission, and I hope that our countries continue to cooperate, India and the United States and our other partners in the space station program. I hope all of us continue to cooperate and that we can do these great things together.
What a beautiful message. Can you also tell us, Mike, and this is really something you can speak to, what are the difficulties? What comes, because it's a very harsh environment out there. So how difficult is it to adapt to that when one is either entering space or coming back from space?
Yeah, when you say the harsh environment, hopefully you're not exposed to that. Hopefully you're protected from that, right? So a lot of bad things. You're in the vacuum of space. We can't live in without air and pressure and so on. So, but your spacecraft protects you from that. They didn't do any spacewalks, but if you go out to do a spacewalk, your spacesuit protects you from that and also keeps you comfortable. So a lot of those harsh things, which are the vacuum of space, micrometeorite protection, they have that on board the space station as well. Radiation protection, you're protected from that. So it's a really harsh environment, but hopefully your spacecraft protects you from all of that. The thing that they had to be probably most concerned about was zero gravity, and the being there for 2 weeks. You don't get a lot of the effects of zero gravity long term if you did not exercise. So if you don't exercise in zero gravity, if you're there for a long period of time, a lot of bad things can happen. You can have muscle loss, bone loss. Your heart can actually shrink. Those are some bad things just by being in zero gravity. But as long as you exercise, and again, being there for 2 weeks, even if you didn't do any exercise, you probably have a bit of a time readjusting, but certainly for longer stays, you have to exercise. I'm pretty sure this crew had a pretty good exercise regimen where they were exercising probably every day, trying to keep their bones and muscles strong. So I think as long as they did that, as long as they did what they were supposed to exercise-wise, I think they protect themselves from some of those bad effects that can happen from space. And then hopefully the spacecraft protects you from all the other things like radiation and micrometeorite protection and give you a good atmosphere so that you can breathe and live normally.
Okay, so you've spoken about the effect of zero gravity on muscle density, bone density, but what are the potential physical and psychological effects of the re-entry and the landing, the entire re-entry into the atmosphere part on these astronauts? How much of this is to do with the space flight duration?
Yeah, so my missions on the space shuttle, when I went to the Hubble Space Telescope, was similar in length to these missions. The mission that just concluded, Axiom 4. I was there for 12 days and then for 14 days. And I did exercise every day. I did a couple spacewalks, and that certainly was a lot of exercise. But still coming back to Earth, I just felt like my balance was off a little bit. Your vestibular system, which is your inner ear that gives you your balance, works on gravity. And that's not working in space. So the brain does not incorporate that information after it adapts to space. So now that information is now being presented to the brain again because the vestibular system's turned back on because you're on Earth, and so your balance is off a little bit. So you can't drive a car or fly an airplane for a couple days until you make sure everything's working again. So I think that's going to be some of the adaptation. But you mentioned about the length of the stay and the length of the rehabilitation period. The time to readapt to Earth is directly related to the amount of time you have in space. So 2 weeks, no, it's not so bad. A couple days, a week, you'll be fine. But if you're up there for 6 months or so, it's quite different. It's a bigger adjustment. I've never experienced personally, but my friends who have told me, and I've observed what they go through, that they're healthy. There's nothing necessarily wrong with their health, but it's still an adaptation. You exercise in space, but that's different than exercising on the ground. You don't have the same load, you don't have the same pounding of gravity all the time that you have here on Earth. So that takes a little bit of time getting used to. And as you mentioned, the amount of time for readapting to the Earth is related to the amount of time you have in space. So this was a couple weeks, so it'll probably take me about a week or so to feel 100%, I would say. Maybe just a couple days they'll be able to drive and do other things. But when you're up there for 6 months, that's a bit different. That's a longer rehabilitation period to readapt to life on Earth.
Okay. And Mike, tell us, we can really ask you this question now that Axiom 4 has returned. Was there a point in this mission, either when it was going up, when it was in space, or when it was coming back down, where you had your fingers crossed?
Yeah, I think, there's always things that go wrong, and, little experiments little things, things may not go exactly as planned, but you usually can adapt to those things. I didn't hear of anything major. As far as having my fingers crossed or hoping for them, I was hoping to see their launch. I was down there for the launch for 4 days back in early June, and it got moved to another week. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay and see my friends go to space. But you always are concerned during a launch. During the mission as well, it's maybe probability-wise, it's safer, but it's also then the entry. There's a few thousand degrees of heat as you re-enter the atmosphere, and so you want to be hopeful then too and have your fingers crossed. So I think I constantly am wishing all my friends in space good luck and are concerned about them and hope they're doing okay. But particularly during the launch and particularly during the entry. That's probably the most concerning times. Those are the times where you're really hoping that everything goes well. But it seemed like everything went really well for this crew, and they were a great crew, and can't wait to hear what they have to say about their mission.
Especially because there was a significant delay in the launch. It happened twice that we had to wait it out actually for another date, and that's when we finally saw the launch happen. But Mike, as a former NASA astronaut, an educator, what is the next space mission you've set your eyes on? We can't let you go before you answer that for us.
Well, I'm really excited about the missions going to the moon. We're going back to the moon, meaning that we haven't sent people there in over 50 years. But I think that's the next big step for us in exploration with people. We've had a lot of experience on space station. We got some more great experience with the Axiom 4 mission. Many more countries are getting involved. I think this is all great. We're learning a lot. And we've been operating in zero gravity on the International Space Station now for 25 years. It's going to be 25 years of having a continuous presence in low Earth orbit. But going to the moon and settling there and setting up a research station there where we can have a continuous presence on the moon, that's a completely different story. It's a lot further away. You have to be more independent. You have to deal with dust and rocks and stuff like that and a little bit of gravity. And I think that's going to be a huge step. And that's what I'm looking forward to. And I think it's in not so distant future. India had a great accomplishment landing their spacecraft on the moon, I guess it was about a year or two ago. And I look forward to more of that sort of exploration. We're landing rovers and other equipment on the moon. We're doing that. But I'm really looking forward to when we get people back on the moon. And I hope that happens in the next few years.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. And we will connect with you soon, especially if we do happen to get to that point in the next few months itself, or perhaps a year or two. But that is time for us to head into a very short break. We're not done as yet. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
All right, starting this bulletin with the breaking news. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has warned Brazil, China and India, saying they could face heavy sanctions if they keep doing business with Russia. Rutte's remarks offered clarity about the potential outcome after President Donald Trump announced that he was giving Putin 50 days to enter into a peace talks with Ukraine or face what he called secondary tariffs of 100% as well as secondary sanctions. Mark Rutte urges leaders to call Putin and push for serious peace talks.
First of all, that the US will now supply massively Ukraine with weapons out of the US, not just air defense, also missiles, also ammunition paid for by the Europeans. And secondly, that President Trump said, basically, if Russia is not serious about peace talks, within 50 days, he will slam secondary sanctions on countries like India, China and Brazil. So my encouragement to these three countries particularly is, if you live now in Beijing or in Delhi, or you are the president of Brazil, you might want to take a look into this, because this might hit you very hard. So please make the phone call to Vladimir Putin.
Well, my colleague Akanksha is with us on the phone line. Akanksha, there is a stern warning.
And now back with a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing in business insights. GIFT Nifty is indicating a weak opening for Indian stock markets. Asian stock markets were subdued in Wednesday morning trade. US stock markets closed marginally lower after latest data indicated a rise in inflation. And crude oil prices are also holding steady as traders weigh demand-supply conditions.
Let's take a look at a sector in particular. IT service players are facing challenges in their engineering R&D vertical, primarily due to the automobile sector. The issues range from delayed project ramp-ups to prolonged decision-making cycles. North American OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, are particularly impacted. The auto industry faces headwinds from softening global demand, competition from low-cost Chinese EVs, tariffs and China's export restrictions on rare earth metals. Now, you can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about the IT services sector catering to the auto industry. You can also find out more actionable insights on the market. It's the premier destination for all investing views and financial insights you're ever going to need, brought to you by Money Control. And with that, we are drawing our show to a close. It's been an action-packed episode. We've taken you from spirituality to out of space, and now with the end of the show, we bring you back home. Is that it?
Hope you had a great morning, and we'll see you tomorrow with something very interesting lined up tomorrow as well. See you at 8.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
So you've seen the big arc lights here, the flashy cameras, but beyond all of this, journalism is all about hard work. So if you have it in you to make a name for yourself in this hyper-competitive industry, then let CNN News 18 be your platform.
Brought to you by. This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
All right, starting this bulletin with the breaking news, NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte has warned Brazil, China and India, saying they could face heavy sanctions if they keep doing business with Russia. Rutte's remarks offered clarity about the potential outcome after President Donald Trump announced that he was giving Putin 50 days to enter into a